Episode 1: Beginning the Journey. When I first started learning English, it felt like trying to climb a mountain. The grammar rules were confusing, and the vocabulary seemed endless. My initial attempts were met with frustration and doubt. However, I knew that to succeed, I had to immerse myself in the language as much as possible. My first step was to bring English into my daily life. I began with simple yet effective techniques. I labeled items in my house with their English names. For example, I put a label saying refrigerator on my fridge, mirror on my mirror, and so on. This constant visual reminder helped me associate English words with everyday objects, making vocabulary learning more practical and less abstract. Listening to English songs became another key part of my immersion strategy. At first, I chose songs with clear lyrics and repetitive phrases, which made it easier to catch and understand the words. I listened to these songs multiple times, trying to sing along. This practice not only improved my vocabulary but also helped with pronunciation and the rhythm of the language. Over time, I began to understand more complex lyrics and could appreciate the nuances of the songs. To build a solid foundation, I enrolled in an English language course. The structured environment provided by the course helped me grasp the basics. My instructor focused on essential grammar rules and fundamental vocabulary, which were initially challenging but crucial for my progress. We practiced speaking, listening, reading, and writing, ensuring that all aspects of language learning were covered. The classroom setting also gave me the opportunity to interact with other learners, share experiences, and motivate each other. One of the early challenges I faced was understanding and using English grammar. English grammar rules can be quite different from those in my native language, and this often led to confusion. To tackle this, I used grammar workbooks and online resources that provided clear explanations and plenty of practice exercises. I dedicated a specific time each day to study grammar, focusing on one rule at a time. Breaking down the learning process into manageable parts made it less overwhelming. Reading became another cornerstone of my learning journey. I started with children's books because they used simple language and were often illustrated, which helped in understanding the context. As my confidence grew, I moved on to young adult novels and then to more complex literature. Reading not only expanded my vocabulary but also exposed me to different writing styles and sentence structures. I kept a notebook where I wrote down new words and their meanings, and I regularly reviewed this vocabulary list. Watching English movies and TV shows with subtitles was another effective strategy. Initially, I watched with subtitles in my native language to understand the context. Gradually, I switched to English subtitles, which helped me match spoken words with their written forms. This practice improved my listening skills and familiarized me with everyday conversational English. I made it a habit to note down any new phrases or idiomatic expressions encountered and try to use them in my own sentences. Practicing speaking was perhaps the most daunting yet most rewarding part of my journey. I sought out opportunities to converse in English, even if it meant stepping out of my comfort zone. I joined language exchange programs where I could practice speaking with native English speakers. These conversations are incredibly beneficial, as they provided real-life practice and immediate feedback. At first, I was nervous and made many mistakes, but over time, my confidence grew, and my speaking skills improved. One of the most helpful tools was using language learning apps. These apps provided interactive exercises, vocabulary games, and daily practice reminders. They made learning fun and engaging, which helped maintain my interest and motivation. Apps that used spaced repetition systems were particularly useful for memorizing vocabulary, as they ensured I reviewed words at optimal intervals for long-term retention. In addition to structured learning, I also tried to think in English as much as possible. This was challenging initially, as my mind naturally reverted to my native language. However, with practice, I found myself gradually starting to think in English, which greatly improved my fluency and speed in forming sentences. Writing was another area I focused on. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my day, thoughts, and any new words I had learned. This practice helped me apply new vocabulary and grammar rules in a practical context. Over time, I noticed my writing becoming more coherent and natural. To make learning enjoyable, I incorporated my hobbies into my English practice. For instance, I enjoyed cooking, so I started reading recipes and watching cooking shows in English. This not only improved my language skills but also made the learning process enjoyable and relevant to my interests. However, by setting small, achievable goals and celebrating each milestone, I stayed motivated. Each new word learned, each successful conversation, and each book read was a step forward in my journey. By immersing myself in the language, using a variety of learning methods, and staying consistent, I gradually overcame the initial challenges. My journey was far from over, but these foundational steps set me on the path to becoming proficient in English. Episode 2: Developing Strategies. As I progressed in my English learning journey, I discovered several strategies that significantly accelerated my improvement. These methods not only made learning more effective but also more enjoyable, helping me stay motivated along the way. One of the most effective methods was reading English books that matched my level. I began with children's books because they used simple language and often included illustrations that made it easier to understand the context. Titles like The Very Hungry Caterpillar and Where the Wild Things Are were among my first reads. These books were engaging and provided a solid foundation in basic vocabulary and sentence structure. As I gained more confidence, I gradually moved to young adult novels such as Harry Potter and The Hunger Games. These books were more complex but still accessible, with plots that kept me interested. Reading these novels helped me expand my vocabulary and exposed me to more sophisticated sentence structures and storytelling techniques. I made it a point to underline new words and phrases and later looked up their meanings. I also wrote summaries of the chapters to practice my writing skills and ensure I understood the plot. Watching English movies with subtitles was another crucial strategy. Initially, I watched movies with subtitles in my native language to grasp the story. Once I felt more comfortable, I switched to English subtitles. This practice helped me match spoken words with their written forms, improving both my listening and reading skills. Films like Toy Story and Finding Nemo were great starters because they were entertaining and used clear, simple language. As my skills improved, I watched more complex films and TV shows like Friends and The Office, which helped me understand conversational English and idiomatic expressions. Listening to English songs also played a significant role in my learning process. I started with songs that had clear lyrics and repetitive choruses, such as those by the Beatles and Taylor Swift. I would listen to the songs multiple times, trying to sing along. This not only improved my pronunciation but also helped me remember new words and phrases. I found that music made learning feel less like a chore and more like an enjoyable activity. Engaging in conversations was crucial for improving my speaking skills. I made it a habit to practice speaking with friends who were fluent in English. At first, I was hesitant and afraid of making mistakes, but I soon realized that speaking regularly was the best way to build confidence and fluency. We would have casual conversations about daily life, hobbies, and current events. These interactions helped me get comfortable with the rhythm and flow of the language. I also joined English conversation clubs and language exchange programs. These provided a supportive environment where I could practice speaking with both native speakers and other learners. In these clubs, we often played language games, discussed books or movies, and shared cultural experiences. These activities were not only fun but also highly educational, as they allowed me to use English in a variety of contexts. Using language learning apps was another effective strategy. Apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and Anki offered interactive exercises that made learning engaging. They also used spaced repetition systems, which helped me remember vocabulary more effectively. These apps provided daily practice reminders, ensuring that I stayed consistent with my learning. I often used them during short breaks or while commuting, making good use of my time. Writing was another area I focused on to enhance my language skills. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my experiences, thoughts, and any new words or phrases I had learned. This practice helped me apply what I had learned in a practical context and improved my writing fluency. Over time, my journal entries became more detailed and sophisticated, reflecting my growing confidence and competence in English. To further improve my grammar and vocabulary, I used online resources and grammar workbooks. Websites like Grammarly and Purdue OWL offered clear explanations and exercises on various grammar topics. I dedicated specific times each week to focus on grammar, tackling one rule at a time. This systematic approach helped me understand the structure of the language better and reduced the number of mistakes I made in speaking and writing. Listening to English podcasts was another strategy that proved highly beneficial. Podcasts covered a wide range of topics, from news and storytelling to science and culture. Shows like The Daily by the New York Times and TED Talks Daily were informative and helped me get used to different accents and speaking speeds. I would listen to these podcasts during my morning walks or while doing household chores, turning passive activities into valuable learning opportunities. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also played a crucial role in my learning process. I joined forums and social media groups focused on topics of interest, such as technology, literature, and travel. Participating in discussions and reading posts by native speakers exposed me to colloquial language and current slang. It also provided opportunities to ask questions and get feedback from experienced speakers. Another effective strategy was setting specific, achievable goals. I broke down my learning process into smaller, manageable tasks, such as learning a certain number of new words each week or completing a chapter of a book. These short-term goals kept me motivated and provided a sense of accomplishment. I also tracked my progress in a journal, which helped me see how far I had come and reinforced the importance of consistency. Incorporating English into my hobbies and interests made learning more relevant and enjoyable. For instance, I love cooking, so I started following English language cooking blogs and watching cooking shows on YouTube. This not only improved my language skills but also enriched my culinary knowledge. Similarly, I read articles and watched documentaries on topics I was passionate about, such as science and history. Throughout this journey, I realized the importance of a positive mindset and perseverance. There were times when progress seemed slow, and I felt discouraged. But I reminded myself that every small step forward was a step toward fluency. Celebrating milestones, no matter how minor, kept me motivated. Each new word learned, each successful conversation, and each book finished was a victory in my journey to master English. By developing and refining these strategies, I was able to overcome the initial challenges and make steady progress in learning English. These methods not only helped me improve faster but also made the learning process enjoyable and sustainable. Episode 3: Overcoming Obstacles. Of course, there were times when I felt stuck and frustrated. Learning a new language is rarely a smooth path, and English, with its numerous exceptions and irregularities, presented many challenges. Some grammar concepts, such as the use of tenses or prepositions, were particularly tough to grasp. I often made mistakes, which initially felt discouraging. However, I soon realized that mistakes were not failures but invaluable learning opportunities. One of the biggest hurdles was mastering English grammar. Unlike the straightforward grammar of my native language, English seemed to have countless rules and exceptions. For instance, understanding when to use the past perfect tense versus the simple past was confusing. To tackle this, I dedicated extra time to studying grammar through various resources. I used grammar books, online tutorials, and educational videos that provided clear explanations and examples. Practicing exercises regularly helped reinforce these concepts, but the key was repetition and persistence. Despite my efforts, I would often find myself making the same mistakes. This was frustrating, but I learned to approach these errors with curiosity instead of frustration. Each mistake highlighted an area that needed more attention. I began to keep a detailed journal where I wrote a few sentences in English every day. This practice allowed me to track my progress and see patterns in my errors. For example, I noticed that I frequently mixed up its and its or used incorrect prepositions. By identifying these recurring mistakes, I could focus on correcting them. Joining online forums and language exchange programs was another strategy that significantly helped me overcome obstacles. Platforms like Reddit language learning forums and dedicated websites like Italki and Conversation Exchange connected me with native speakers and fellow learners. These interactions provided real-life practice and immediate feedback, which was crucial for improvement. Speaking with native speakers exposed me to natural language use, idiomatic expressions, and colloquial speech that textbooks often overlook. Participating in language exchange programs was both challenging and rewarding. Initially, I felt nervous and self-conscious about speaking English, fearing judgment for my mistakes. However, I quickly realized that these fears were unfounded. Most native speakers were patient and supportive, appreciating my efforts to learn their language. They offered constructive feedback and corrections, which helped me refine my speaking skills. In return, I helped them with my native language, creating a mutually beneficial learning experience. One particularly effective method for overcoming obstacles was using spaced repetition systems, SRS, for vocabulary building. I used apps like Anki to create digital flashcards with new words and phrases. The SRS algorithm scheduled reviews of these cards at optimal intervals, ensuring that I revisited information just before I was likely to forget it. This method significantly improved my retention of new vocabulary. I also made physical flashcards and sticky notes, placing them around my living space to keep new words in sight and in mind. To further improve my listening skills, I started listening to English language podcasts and audiobooks. This immersion helped me get used to different accents and speeds of speech. Podcasts like This American Life and Stuff You Should Know were particularly engaging and informative. I would listen to episodes multiple times, each time picking up new details and better understanding the content. Audiobooks provided a similar benefit, and by following along with the written text, this forced me to rely on my listening skills and contextual understanding. I chose shows with clear dialogue in everyday scenarios, such as Friends and Modern Family. This method also exposed me to cultural references and slang, enriching my overall language comprehension. To improve, I started writing more frequently, not just in my journal but also by participating in online writing communities. Websites like Wattpad and writing subreddits offered platforms where I could share my work and receive feedback from others. This practice helped me develop a clearer, more coherent writing style. I also used online tools like Grammarly to check my grammar and style, learning from the corrections it suggested. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of new information. To manage this, I broke down my learning into smaller, manageable tasks. Instead of trying to learn a large number of new words at once, I focused on mastering a few each day. This approach made the learning process more sustainable and less intimidating. I also set specific, achievable goals, such as completing a chapter of a book or holding a 10-minute conversation in English. Achieving these goals provided a sense of accomplishment and kept me motivated. Throughout my journey, maintaining a positive mindset was crucial. There were days when progress seemed slow or non-existent, and it was easy to get discouraged. During these times, I reminded myself of how far I had come and the progress I had already made. Celebrating small victories, like successfully ordering food in English or understanding a movie without subtitles, helped maintain my motivation. I also surrounded myself with supportive friends and language partners who encouraged and motivated me. In addition to structured learning, I found that incorporating English into my hobbies made the process more enjoyable and effective. For example, as a cooking enthusiast, I started following English language cooking blogs and YouTube channels. This not only improved my language skills but also enhanced my culinary knowledge. Similarly, I explored English content related to my other interests, such as science and technology. This approach kept learning relevant and engaging. Overcoming obstacles in language learning requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to embrace challenges. Each setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. By using a combination of structured study, practical application, and immersive experiences, I was able to navigate these challenges and make steady progress in my English learning journey. Episode 4: Making Progress. Slowly but surely, I started to notice my progress in learning English. The journey had been filled with challenges and setbacks, but each small victory along the way reinforced my determination and showed me that my hard work was paying off. These moments of realization were not just milestones. They were affirmations that I was on the right path. One of the most memorable milestones was the first time I understood an entire conversation in English without needing to translate it in my head. It happened during a casual coffee chat with an English-speaking friend. We were discussing everyday topics, and I suddenly realized that I was fully engaged in the conversation without mentally switching back to my native language. This breakthrough gave me a tremendous boost in confidence. It felt like a barrier had been lifted, and I could finally participate in conversations more fluidly. As I continued to immerse myself in the language, writing emails and essays became less daunting. Initially, writing in English was a slow and painstaking process. I would draft sentences, then painstakingly review and edit them, worried about making mistakes. But over time, as I practiced writing daily in my journal and participated in online writing forums, I noticed a shift. My sentences started to flow more naturally, and I spent less time second-guessing myself. I began to enjoy the process of expressing my thoughts in English, and this was reflected in the quality and coherence of my writing. A particularly rewarding experience was when I wrote my first essay for an English class and received positive feedback from my instructor. The essay was on a topic I was passionate about, and I had put a lot of effort into researching and crafting it. When I received my grade and read the encouraging comments, it was a significant validation of my progress. It showed me that not only was I able to communicate my ideas effectively, but I could also engage critically with the language. Thinking in English was another significant milestone. At first, it was challenging because my mind naturally reverted to my native language. But with consistent practice and immersion, I began to notice that I was starting to think in English without effort. Simple thoughts, plans for the day, and internal dialogues began occurring in English. This shift made a huge difference in my fluency, as it meant I could form sentences and express ideas more quickly and naturally during conversations. One area where I saw substantial progress was in my listening skills. Early on, understanding native speakers was one of the most difficult aspects of learning English. They spoke quickly, used slang, and had different accents. To improve, I consistently watched English movies and TV shows and listened to podcasts. Initially, I relied heavily on subtitles, but as my skills improved, I started watching without them. The first time I watched an entire movie without subtitles and understood almost everything was a significant achievement. It proved that my listening skills had advanced to a new level. I also noticed improvement in my ability to read and comprehend complex texts. I started with simple books and gradually moved to more challenging literature, newspapers, and academic articles. At first, I needed a dictionary for almost every paragraph, but over time my vocabulary expanded, and my comprehension skills improved. The moment I finished reading my first English novel without needing constant reference to a dictionary was incredibly satisfying. It opened up a new world of literature and information that I could explore on my own. Speaking in English became increasingly comfortable and enjoyable. Joining conversation clubs and language exchange programs allowed me to practice regularly. Initially, I was nervous and made frequent mistakes, but with time my fluency improved. One notable moment was during a language exchange event where I spoke with native English speakers for over an hour without feeling overwhelmed. The conversation flowed naturally, and I could see that my speaking skills had reached a level where I could comfortably engage in extended discussions. Another significant moment of progress was when I began to use idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms correctly. Understanding and using these phrases appropriately was challenging because they often don't translate directly into other languages. However, by watching TV shows, listening to native speakers, and asking questions when I didn't understand something, I gradually started to incorporate these expressions into my speech. The first time I used an idiom correctly in a conversation and received an appreciative nod from a native speaker was a moment of pride. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also contributed to my progress. Participating in forums, social media groups, and online courses helped me practice reading and writing in real time. These interactions exposed me to different writing styles, tones, and registers. It also allowed me to ask questions and receive feedback, which was invaluable for refining my language skills. Being part of a community of learners and native speakers created a supportive environment where I could practice and improve continuously. One of the most significant measures of my progress was my improved ability to understand and engage with English language media. Watching news broadcasts, documentaries, and educational videos without subtitles became a regular practice. Understanding the news and following complex topics in documentaries was a clear indicator that my listening and comprehension skills had reached an advanced level. It also meant that I could stay informed about global events and trends directly from English sources, which broadened my perspective and knowledge. Incorporating English into my hobbies and interests further solidified my progress. As a cooking enthusiast, following English language recipes and cooking shows became second nature. I also started reading science fiction and fantasy novels in English, which not only improved my language skills but also enriched my imagination and creativity. Engaging with content related to my interests kept learning enjoyable and relevant, ensuring that I remained motivated and passionate about my progress. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that making progress in learning English was not just about reaching specific milestones but about the continuous effort and dedication I put into it. Each step, no matter how small, contributed to my overall improvement. Celebrating these milestones kept me motivated and reminded me that every bit of effort was bringing me closer to my goal of fluency. It reinforced the belief that with perseverance, patience, and the right strategies, I could overcome any challenge and continue to grow as an English speaker. As I continue to learn and improve, I remain committed to pushing my boundaries and embracing new challenges.
Our teacher tells us that we don't have to study, we don't have to read textbooks, but we have to use English a lot. It is very good for me. I don't like studying, and I don't like textbooks. Then we speak about what is important when we learn a new language. Our teacher tells us we need languages for communication. Languages help us say ideas and understand ideas. So when you learn a new language, the best method is to use the language for communication. And this is what we will do in our course. We will speak a lot. Many students try to remember new words. They also study grammar rules. And these students don't use English for speaking. They study about the language, but they don't use the language. Of course, you need to learn new words and new grammar, but you don't have to study them. In this course, I want to show you a very simple and effective method: how to learn words and grammar. I like what our teacher says. Our lesson continues. We speak about our hobbies and what we do in our free time. We speak in pairs or with our teacher. We speak all the lesson. I like it. I am really happy. This system of learning is very good for me. When you want to learn English, use English for communication. I like it. I am really happy. Communication. Lesson 2. How to learn words. I go to school on Tuesday again. One student asks a question, which is very interesting. She asks, "What is the best method to learn new words?" Our teacher says, "There are many things which you can do if you want to learn new words. For me, reading is the best. If you read, you learn faster than people who don't read. It is good to read for 30 minutes every day. I want to show you what you can do if you want to get the maximum from reading. It is very important that the book or text which you read is interesting for you. The book can be a nice story. The text can have interesting information for your job or your hobby. Don't read a text which isn't interesting for you. It is good to read a text in which you know a lot of words. Of course, sometimes you can see words which you don't know. When you see a word which you don't know, take a dictionary and look at the word in the dictionary. Then continue reading. You don't have to write the word on a dictionary in the dictionary. Remember the word. When you translate the word, continue reading. Concentrate only on understanding the text. It is important. When you see another new word, translate the word. The method is very simple. You only read and you translate new words. It is all. Reading is also good because when you read, you learn how. Every word is connected to other words in the sentence. You see how to connect the words correctly. This method of learning new words is very effective. Try it, and you can see how fast you can learn new words. Then we continue with the lesson. We speak about the situation in England. We speak about the best jobs for students. This is good because I want to have a job. I want to do something after my school. I ask other students if they know where I can find a job. They tell me that I can go to a job center. The job center has a lot of jobs for students. This is good for me. I am happy that I know where I can find a job. When my day at school is finished, I go to the job center. I don't know what jobs I can do. So I ask the lady at the job center what the best job for a student is. The lady tells me that they have some good jobs for students. She tells me that I can be a cleaner or a waiter in a cafe. She tells me that my English is good for work at a cafe. The training is not difficult and I can use English when I speak to customers. The lady tells me that I can start my job on Thursday. It is all good for me. I'm happy that I have a job where I can use English. When you want to learn new words effectively, read for 30 minutes every day. Lesson 3. How to learn pronunciation. On Wednesday, I go to school again. There is one student in the class who is more quiet than other students. He is from South Korea. When our teacher asks if we have any questions for her, this student from Korea says that he has a question. He says that he has a big problem with pronunciation. He knows that his pronunciation is not very good, but he doesn't know how to make it better. He doesn't speak much because he doesn't like his pronunciation. He says that he reads and watches films in English a lot. He understands very well, but he also wants to speak well. He asks if there is something what he can do with his pronunciation. When my teacher hears this, she says, "Okay, I can tell you something about pronunciation and how to practice it. I also want to teach you a technique which can help you with pronunciation. First, we have to look at why students have problems with pronunciation. When we speak, we have to move our mouth. We have to use muscles in our mouth. The problem is that when you speak English, sometimes you use your muscles, like in your native language. Then your English pronunciation is like pronunciation in your native language. This happens to many students who learn English. Almost every student has a little different pronunciation than native speakers have. It is not a big problem, because usually people understand what you want to say. You are a student, and it is logical that your pronunciation is different. You are not perfect when you study English, but you can work on your pronunciation and make it better. There is a great technique that can help you a lot. The name of this technique is shadowing. The technique is very simple. When you do shadowing, you simply copy the sound which you hear. When children learn their first language, they also copy what they hear. They copy after their parents again and again, and after some time, their pronunciation is perfect. You can learn English pronunciation the same way. You can take some video, which is not very fast, and which you understand very well. You listen and you copy what you hear when you hear it. It is all. Then our teacher goes to www.wweb.com and she finds a good video where the shadowing technique is well demonstrated. We watch the video. Then we all try to do shadowing for about 3 minutes. Then our teacher tells us, shadowing is also good when you are preparing for a presentation and you want to have good pronunciation. Before the presentation, you can go to some place where you are alone. Before the presentation, you can go to some place where you are alone. And you can do shadowing for about 10 minutes. You will see how much it will help you to have better pronunciation during the presentation. This is very interesting for me. I haven't heard about this technique before. When the lesson finishes, I go to the school reception. I ask the lady if there are any sport activities at school. I would like to do some sport in England. The lady at the reception says, yes, we have a table tennis team and a football team. The football team has training today at 5 o'clock. I'm very happy because sport is very important in my life. I go to the training of the football team. I meet a lot of players from different countries. The players are from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. I like the training. I am very happy that my time in England starts well. I have a great teacher. I also have some new friends from my football team. Also, tomorrow I am starting my job. When you want to have good pronunciation, repeat after native speakers. Lesson 4. How to practice. Speaking on Thursday, I go to school again. We have a new student in our class. Her name is Monica, and she is from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, my teacher asks Monica some questions. My teacher knows Monica because Monica visited her class 1 year ago. It was a class for beginners, and it was only for children. The teacher has been a great teacher for 2 weeks during summer holiday. When Monica speaks, her English is beautiful. Her pronunciation is very good, and she is very fluent. My teacher is very happy, and she tells Monica, "Your school in Italy must be very good." Monica says, "I don't go to any school. I learn English at home. I use techniques from you. I do a lot of reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian. This is how I work on my English. The 2 weeks which I spent last summer at your class helped me a lot. You showed me the way. I know how to work on my English every day. This is why I wanted to go to your class again, because 1 year ago I was a beginner and now I can speak English. I want to learn from you again. My teacher is very happy when she hears these words. She thanks Monica for helping me. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I also know the shadowing technique. But Monica also speaks about thinking aloud. I don't know what it is. So I ask our teacher, what is thinking aloud? Our teacher says, it is a very effective technique. You have to have a strong motivation to learn English if you want to have benefit from this technique. It is also good to know that for some people, this technique is a little crazy. But when you start to think aloud,